We're about to see the video of Donald Trump achieving the art of no deals once again today.
We are going to be imposing a 25% increase. We're going to bring it from 25% to 50%, the tariffs.
The ongoing trucker protest in Canada, characterized by the partial blockade of the Ambassador Bridge, is unleashing a cascade of severe repercussions, particularly for the nation's small, independent grocery stores. Welcome viewers to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. These vital community hubs, which are deeply reliant on the continuous flow of food imports from the United States, are now confronting an increasingly dire scenario marked by rapidly dwindling supplies and an alarming surge in commodity prices. The situation not only threatens their commercial viability, but also raises significant concerns about food accessibility for countless Canadian households. The disproportionate burden on independent grocers. Canada is home to an estimated 6,900 independent grocery stores, a significant portion of which are bearing the brunt of these supply chain disruptions. Unlike their larger, more financially robust chain counterparts, these smaller businesses typically operate with leaner budgets and fewer accessible resources. This inherent financial constraint renders them exceptionally susceptible to even minor fluctuations in pricing, which are now being exacerbated by the sharp increase in costs as available stock becomes scarcer. Their limited financial flexibility means they have less capacity to absorb rising wholesale prices, inevitably forcing them to pass these increases onto consumers or face unsustainable losses. Moreover, these independent grocers frequently serve as the cornerstone of food access in many of Canada's more isolated or underserved regions. From bustling suburban neighborhoods to remote rural outposts and vital Indigenous communities, these stores often represent the only viable source of fresh and staple groceries. Gary Sands, the Senior Vice President of the Canadian Federation of Independent Grocers, CFIG, underscores this critical role, explaining independent grocers tend to be in communities where many times there's not a chain retailer, they're the only game in town, so when there are supply chain issues, it becomes more acute. He warns that for these communities, the current crisis is not just an inconvenience, but a rapidly unfolding issue of food security, threatening the very ability of residents to put food on their tables. A worsening crisis amidst existing strain. The trucker blockade, instigated as a protest against the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for cross-border truckers, is not occurring in a vacuum. Instead, it is amplifying an already fragile situation for the independent grocery sector. These businesses have been battling the relentless pressures of the ongoing global pandemic and navigating persistent, broader supply chain challenges for many months. The blockade, therefore, represents yet another crippling blow to an industry already stretched thin. Michelle Wazilishin, the national spokeswoman for the Retail Council of Canada, paints a stark picture of the potential economic fallout. She highlights that roughly 25% of all food and consumer products, as well as packaging and ingredients, are shipped by trucks across the Ambassador Bridge alone. The prolonged demonstrations, she cautions, could inevitably lead to plant shutdowns, potential layoffs, reduced on-shelf availability, and increased pricing for many products like fruits and vegetables. This suggests a domino effect that could cripple various sectors of the food industry, leading to widespread economic instability and further escalating costs for consumers. Wazilishin further emphasizes the critical importance of Canada's critical trade and transportation infrastructure, asserting that the current protests are likely to reduce choices for Canadian consumers and drive costs up for families, impacting household budgets across the country. The perilous state of food supply and consumer costs. The reliance on U.S. food imports is particularly pronounced for Canada, especially during its protracted winter months when domestic agricultural production significantly diminishes. Sands articulates this dependence, stating, "In Canada, in the winter we don't grow a lot of fruits and vegetables. So 40 to 50% of the produce we get here in Ontario for national distribution comes in that way. The Ambassador Bridge serves as a crucial artery for these vital imports, and its disruption means that independent grocers are already witnessing tangible shortages and considerable delays in receiving perishable goods from the States. Produce that Canadians have come to depend on as a winter staple. The inherent nature of these products, often possessing a finite shelf life, compounds the problem. Beyond fresh produce, the scarcity extends to a broader array of essential items. Products such as soups, spices, and cereals, which had already been impacted by unrelated factory worker strikes in the U.S., are now becoming even more difficult to procure. The longer these transportation delays persist, the greater the risk of product spoilage and significant waste, particularly for perishable goods. This translates directly into higher operational costs for grocers, expenses that are almost inevitably passed on to the end consumer, resulting in inflated retail prices. Small grocers are already grappling with the immediate financial implications of these compounding factors, struggling to maintain their inventory while managing rising procurement costs. The precarious position of independent grocers and their customers. Giancarlo Trimarchi, co-owner of Four Vince's Market grocery stores in Ontario, acknowledges a slight reassurance from the existence of alternative points of entry for goods into Canada. However, this comfort is tempered by a profound concern. What if the protest persists indefinitely, or if these alternative routes become equally congested and strained? He admits a troubling lack of a robust contingency plan for such prolonged disruptions. Trimarchi voices a significant apprehension for independent businesses, stating, "The risk as an independent is that we get treated as the bottom of the barrel. Bigger suppliers have budget and power that we don't, which could affect our ability to get products." This highlights a power imbalance in the supply chain, where larger retailers may be prioritized for limited stock. Trimarchi further underscores the unique challenges faced by independent grocers who differentiate themselves through the quality and availability of fresh products. He reveals that 37% of our store sales come from produce, and that the core of our business, about 80%, is around fresh departments such as bread, meat, produce, which have a short shelf life. The vulnerability of these high-turnover, perishable items means that disruptions directly strike at the heart of their business model. The current situation is not just an operational challenge, it's a social dilemma. Trimarchi explains that the rising prices are exerting immense pressure on his most vulnerable customers, often forcing them into an impossible choice between prioritizing health through fresh produce or opting for more affordable, often less nutritious, processed foods. He emphasizes the tight margins within the grocery business. We're trying to be as reasonable or fair with our pricing, but grocery stores like us don't make a lot, so there's not a lot of margin to give up. While some of his diverse clientele may possess the financial flexibility to absorb these price hikes, many others are suffering. The increased cost of fresh items makes processed foods considerably more appealing, a trend that disproportionately disadvantages lower-income individuals who rely on accessible, affordable nutrition. This highlights the socioeconomic implications of the protest, transforming a logistical challenge into a matter of public health and equity. How might these ongoing supply chain vulnerabilities reshape Canada's long-term food security strategies?